What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Edgar. So, I came to a realization the other day. Nobody, not you, not me, not your favorite influencer, none of us are as original or as unique as we'd like to think we are. Think about that for a second. All of our thoughts, ideas, and beliefs came from somebody else. For example, your religion or your belief in God and a higher power was most likely ingrained in you by your parents. Your knowledge about the world came from a textbook written by one person, taught to you by another, and all of that was based on a curriculum put in place by yet another person. In fact, if you're watching this video, which is sort of philosophical and self-improvement-y in nature, it's likely that your sense of self and at least your interests were brought on by reflecting on the teachings of philosophical legends like Socrates and Marcus Aurelius. And if that's not the case, then it's very probable that you identify in a similar way as 90% of your race, culture, or even city. All of that is to say this: we're not original. I'm not original, you're not original. Your thoughts are not your thoughts. Now, the reason why this came about is because I recently made a video, which I'll put in the card up here somewhere, in which I talked about how, in our journey through life, we often focus on our goals, but in the end, we always look back and realize that what really mattered was the journey, not the destination, right? So it's this whole idea of the journey being more important than the destination. Now, obviously, that's not an original idea in and of itself. So many successful people have talked about it, and I'm sure you alone have heard it from hundreds of sources. But a couple of weeks ago, right after I made that video, I was reading one of Dan Coe's weekly newsletters, and in that edition, he wrote something that challenged my beliefs. Well, maybe not challenged, but at least provided a new perspective. In that newsletter, Dan actually wrote the exact opposite of what I've been saying. And he wrote that the destination is more important than the journey. And that is because the destination gives the journey meaning. If you don't have a destination in mind, then there's no reason to be doing anything, and therefore, no journey. And Dan emphasized that the more meaningful a destination is, then the more meaningful the journey is in result. Now, I read this and I immediately wrote it into my random thoughts sheet that I keep ongoing, just with things that randomly come in. And I was sitting there thinking about it, and I realized that he was right. Now, don't misunderstand me. I didn't just outright adopt his mindset. I do think that eventually that'll flip. In retrospect, I do think the journey always outweighs the destination. But without the destination to give the journey meaning, none of it would have ever happened in the first place. So I get where he's coming from, and I understand that as being a truth. But in that moment, what was fascinating to me, even more so than the idea, was how quickly I came to acknowledge this person's writing as truth. And then I got to thinking even further, and I realized that Dan Coe's content isn't 100% original either. His ideas also are a byproduct of others. He's inspired by the likes of Naval Ravikant and Stephen Collier. And then, in the midst of all that, for whatever reason, I remembered about this website I'd heard about years ago called the Library of Babel. If you've never heard of the Library of Babel, it's essentially a website that generates text based on every possible combination of letters, spaces, and punctuation, and then it stores them into what they call books, hence the library name. Now, because it stores information based on every possible combination of text, letters, and grammar, then in theory, the website should contain every single literary work that has ever been written or that will ever be written. But because the text generation is random and infinite, then most of it is gibberish. But they have a search feature. So I thought, what if I copy and paste, part of Dan's letter into this and see what comes up? So I did it, and sure enough, it was on the website, stored neatly in one of the many books. I tried the same with one of my scripts, and boom, there it was. Of course, all of these texts were written by an algorithm generating random text and not by a person, but still it raises the question, what is an original thought? If our thoughts build on the ideas of someone else, even if it's in a new or creative way, then is it really original? And if they're already written somewhere else, like the Library of Babel, then is anything we say, think, or write original? Honestly, I don't think so. But there's a positive side to all of this. Real quick though, if this video has been interesting at all so far, then please consider subscribing and hitting like, because it really helps with the channel. Also, I'm going to link the website, Library of Babel, in the description. It's just sort of interesting to see what's on there, so check it out if you want. Okay, so the positive side of this is this. If none of our thoughts are our own, this also means that our fears about chasing our dreams or going after what we really want are not our own either. There's nothing negative or even consequential about people judging you. Society just convinced you that it's something you should avoid. There's also nothing wrong with failure. The world just made you feel like you had to succeed at every single thing you do. These aren't your thoughts. They're thoughts drilled into you by the same society that tries to dictate what you should and shouldn't do. And if these aren't your thoughts, then that means you can replace them with anything you want, whenever you want. Nerves can turn into excitement. Fears can turn into opportunities. The majority of what we call fears is nothing more than the voice of societal expectations trying to convince us about what we should be frightened by. But if you take a moment to really sit down and examine your fears, then you'll come to realize that they don't come from your own experience, but rather the collective fear of others. When you strip away the horror stories of the people who have tried and failed, when you look at the world through your own eyes, you will see that there was nothing to be afraid of. What's left after that is the freedom to do whatever the hell you want to do. And others have done it, so that's not original either, but you know what? It doesn't even matter. But with that, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.